All righty. Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon and welcome to Overflow. Thank you so much for joining us. It is great to have you with us. If you're joining us live, we always love to hear from you. So go ahead and type in the chat, hello, good afternoon, who you are, and even any questions or comments or thoughts you have about the sermon or about our discussion. We love to incorporate your thoughts as much as possible. And if you're watching back later, we're so grateful that you could participate with us. And so, as always, our purpose of Overflow is to walk through the sermon from the day before and to process it, talk about it, give a little overview, and then to dive a little deeper into how we can practically live out these things in our daily lives. We want to help the Word of God to be not only informative, but transformative. And so that's really the purpose of this Overflow show, to walk through how we are processing the scripture and what we are trying to do to intentionally live differently. And so joining me today, we have Aaron and Ryan and myself. And since Aaron gave the sermon yesterday, we're going to let her recap it for us and give us a little overview, and then we'll dive into some conversation. So Aaron, take it away.
Awesome. So yesterday we were in Ecclesiastes chapter 10, and we focused on verses 12 through 15, or through 14, which talk about words of the mouth of the wise are gracious. So and fools are consumed by their own lips. So kind of the author sets up this just this dichotomy of wise words and foolish words. And so I told a story about when my husband decided he was interested in me, and that was a very interesting thing that had to do with words. And we went through how words are an overflow of what is in our heart, how words can bring life or bring death, and our words have direction to them, and just how even when we disagree, and I feel like in our times today, I feel like there's just a lot of disagreements and a lot of, there's a lot of controversial and hard things happening in the world right now, and it can be we talked about using wise words and being able to point people to Jesus in disagreements or in hard situations, and just what it means to use wise words and how people perceive us and how we can love people with the words that we use. And so that was kind of a basic. Did I miss anything big?
Yeah, I think that's a good overview.
Yeah.
If you want more, watch the sermon, or watch it back. It was good. And it's one of those things where on one hand it feels like a basic topic. So it's like, okay, this isn't super new to me. I've heard this before. Sticks and stones may break my bones. We've developed these things against words and protections because we know that words do have power. But on the other hand, it's like we need to hear this sermon and we need to implement it because our words have power and they have meaning and significance and influence and authority. But I think so often we just throw words out there for a lot of different reasons, to sound good, to be overly harsh or critical or judgmental, to put others down, to make ourselves look good. We do a lot of things with words that I think are not God honoring. And I think one of the biggest things I got from the sermon was really that our words have the power to give life or to take life. And so what are we going to choose to do with our words? You gave a situation or scenario in your sermon, and it was kind of talking about how we use words. And it's not just about like proving your side of the argument or making your point in a way that you win the debate, but it's ultimately about how you go about the debate to begin with and how you go about processing. And that's kind of an idea or a concept that I've been thinking about as I watch like superhero movies and stuff. And there's a lot of like movies that even more like recently, like I feel like traditional superhero movies, like the good people are like obviously good, and then like the bad people are like obviously bad, doing horrible things. But in more recent superhero type movies, the good versus bad starts to get kind of blurry. I forget which movie, but I was watching a movie recently, and it's like you're portraying this person as the protagonist and then this person as the antagonist, but it's really blurry and it kind of flip-flops throughout the movie who really is the good or the bad kind of person, And I always felt like the lesson was it's not about accomplishing your vision or your goal or what you think needs to happen in the world, but it's how you go about doing it. And the superheroes save lives even at the cost of their own or at the cost of accomplishing their mission. The bad characters don't care who they hurt or who they harm in order to get. And so it's less about what they're going towards and a lot about what they're going for. So I just kind of thought about that whole idea with your sermon. And so much of life is how we are going about things. And so it is very easy for me to see an end goal in mind. And it could be get my kids out the door and ready for school. It could be getting the house clean. It could be getting all the errands done. It could be whatever we've got to do. And it's like, if I'm rushed or if I'm stressed or I'm hurried, I will use words in whatever way I need to just get that accomplished. And that can be hurtful or that can be rude or mean or degrading. And I think we tend to do that we tend to treat people however we need to treat them in order to get the result that we want. And it opens up all sorts of thoughts about how you can, mistreat people with your words, how you can be abusive, how you can be harmful, how you can be damaging, or just doing all sorts of bad things. And so I think we need to be much more careful about how we use our words, to realize that our words carry authority and power and representation of who we believe in, that our words tell the world that we are Christians. They will know we are Christians by our love, I think was the hymn that you almost sang, but just shared.
Not almost sing it.
We know you wanted to sing it, Aaron. You just held back. So
I was so inspired by how much Juno sings when he preaches, but I just
but yeah, it's not just our love, it's they will know we are Christians by the lives that we live and by how we live. And talking is a lot of life, or typing or sharing, is a lot of our life. And so we have to be super aware. And so the last thing I'll say is, when you talked about kids being at school or being at, summer day camp or wherever they are all day, and then coming home and falling apart, and being able to be a comfort and a care for them, and the importance of not getting mad at them, but of really being like a safe place for them, just made me think about my kids. And it's so funny because I feel like every time we pick them up, like I'll pick up my youngest two from preschool and it's like, daddy, we love you, daddy. And within 20 seconds, we're halfway to the car. It's like they're on the floor. There's like, they're not even going to make it to the car. Shiloh's legs stopped working all of a sudden. Sage's backpack's too heavy. She drops her water. Now they're both on the floor. Let's just like, within seconds, it's like everything falls apart and I've got to like pick up the pieces. And it is so tempting to just be like, you misbehaving children, you bad kids, get in the car, get your butts in the car. But they just need care, and they need love in that time. And so really thinking through how we use our words. My wife Hartley really challenged me a few weeks ago and just said, the way you're communicating to our kids, do they feel like a burden or like a blessing based on how you talk to them? And in some moments, a blessing, but in other moments when I'm feeling stressed, they probably feel like a burden or like they're in the way. And so I've really been working on my language and how I talk with them, and just my care and compassion, because words communicate so much more than just what we're saying, but they communicate how we're feeling. And so, yeah, those are just some thoughts I'm kind of thinking through with the sermon, and whatever you guys are thinking, go for it.
Yeah, no, there were a lot of things that I was thinking of as you were talking. I think so. I'll start with you talked earlier about debates and and what words we're saying in debates. And I think often, like, if you're in a debate with someone and you're trying to prove yourself right and they're trying to prove themselves right, are either of you, like, I think 99% of the time, maybe a little less than that, but almost all the time, no one's going to change their mind. People are just want to say they're right, and they're just waiting for their turn to talk, and they're not even really listening to each other. So I think, like, often, like, even just avoiding debates like that can be, the best way to go about that, then you won't be in a situation where you say something negative. I mean, it might be different if it's like a really close friend and you're having a genuine conversation, there's trust there. But if it's with someone who's like mostly a stranger, like if there's no trust there, they're not going to trust your opinion. They're not going to care what you think. You're just talking and then you say something mean or you're frustrated and then it doesn't go well and it goes to a bad place. So that's one thought I had. I just think that often those type of debates, especially if you're doing it on the internet, like on social media, that's never, tell me a time that leads to something good. Again, unless it's maybe if it's with a close friend, that could be different. But if it's with people, just people online, internet's not a good place for words. Put it that way. The other thing I was thinking about, and I have two examples that I think can connect to this, is I think we need to be most careful with our words with the people who we are the closest with, who we are the most have the most relational intimacy with, the most trust with, because that's where I think we're naturally the most vulnerable. And I can think of two examples of that. So the first one is I had a friend once in college, and just talking to him, about his childhood. He's like, oh yeah, my parents, I had good parents. They loved me. They were generally always nice to me. But there was something that his dad had said to him when he was like 6 or 7 or something like that, like really little, right? And it was a moment where his dad was very frustrated, very angry, and made a really mean comment towards his son. And that just stuck with him, and that stayed in his heart his entire life as this like really hurtful thing. And like he said that like when he was way older, like in high school or college or something, he had asked his dad about it, and his dad had no idea what he was talking about, like no clue. He was just like, I don't even remember saying that. I don't remember anything. It's just maybe a dad who was burnt out said something he didn't mean to say, right? And I think like often, so I think like especially, I am not a parent. You both are parents, but I think like with kids in those frustrated moments, like if you say like there could be really things you say that just stick with your kids if it's something that's hurtful or tears down and maybe hits them in a really vulnerable spot. So like I think like where we have the most relational intimacy, obviously with kids, they look up to you and they trust you as their parent. That might be where you need to be like the most careful with your words, because you could cause hurt. The other example, I'm not gonna share all the details because it might be a little personal, but yeah. But so my wife, Sarah, she growing up with her family, they gave her a nickname of a character in a TV show, and I won't go into like the TV show or what character it was because that's kind of private. And whenever they brought it up, they always laughed it off. And then when we were married, I even like, and it was like almost like a family joke. And Sarah even laughed when that happened, right? When she was called that nickname from that TV show. But then when we were married, I started calling her the same thing. And then one day, like it really upset her and she became really emotional. And she's like, I've always hated being called that. Like I've always hated that was my nickname. But with my family, it was almost like a joke to describe, how I was acting or whatever, and it was really hurtful. And I didn't even realize, like, to me, it was just like a joke and like me getting in on the family joke they had their entire lives, but she never like talked to her family about that. But in that moment, I just realized like, wow, something to me that was just completely a joke and funny had this really hurtful impact on her and had been really tearing at her entire life, like since she was a kid. That was their joke. So so I think we just need to be careful with our words, even things that are teasing or are just funny, if especially if they're getting something that's yeah, anyways, they can just really hurt in ways we don't even see, especially in the relationships with the most trust, such as family, spouse. Yeah, and I think it's really important how we represent our words to the world around us, such as like debates and stuff like that, like I just talked about. I think that's very important too. But yeah, I think we just sometimes we're very careless with our words, and I think I can be guilty of that too. But so yeah, those are my random thoughts.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting experience to preach a sermon like this, because as you're like preparing, I don't know, at least for me, as I was like preparing, I was really challenged as I go through my day-to-day life, like all the things I'm challenging the rest of us too. Like I'm evaluating myself too. And then like Ryan, I love what you're saying about like when we have the end goal in mind. Like this morning was my kid's first day of school, and it was kind of chaotic this morning, and and my goal was just get my kid into school, and it's busy. There's lots of parents, like a lot of kids haven't been to school in the last, year and a half. And so it was just everything you could imagine as far as just like everyone, the confusion and just trying to get everybody in. And I was thinking about it after, and I was like, whew, it's interesting how a stressful situation, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not as patient of a person as I thought, and like talking about how words are an overflow of our heart. Right. And so, in that moment, it was like I was so focused on the goal that I was just, I didn't say anything necessarily, but I could have, I was frustrated and it was confusing and I was sad that my kids are going back to school. Anyway, so it is an interesting, just how different situations can bring out, different broken parts of us, and just how that can affect our words. Luckily for me today, it didn't, but I know that it could have, and it just has gotten me thinking about those kinds of things. So I feel like I had another thought, but I just lost it. Sorry.
It'll come back.
It'll
come back. For me, it's one of those things where if I am rested and I don't have too much to do, and I've had some good like prayer and scripture time with the Lord, and I don't have like a rush day ahead, I can be patient and I can be kind with my words and I can be life-giving, and it doesn't take much effort. But if I've got a lot going on, or I'm busy, or I'm stressed, or I'm tired, or I haven't slept much, or it's been really busy, or I've got a lot ahead of me, or I'm just worn out, physically tired, emotionally tired, whatever it would be, it takes a lot of effort that I don't have to be that same way. And so, one of the big challenges that I've been working through lately is, what do I do when I get to the end of my ability to be excellent or God honoring or life-giving with my words? I've gotten to the end of my ability to do that, but I still have more day and engagement with people ahead of me. What do I do? Where do I find the source? And lately, I've just been coming to that I just need to be in prayer. God, help me and give me strength and give me words and give me grace. Because it's easy to be patient in the first 50 problems that my kids have, but once I get to 51, it's like, all right, enough, or same with my wife, super easy to be patient with her. And then after XYZ and 20 things are going on, it's like easy for me to get frustrated. And so how do I make sure that I don't just start well, but I end well and I finish well, and I stay dependent on the Lord? I think is definitely something that I'm working on, and being intentional and thought out, anticipating what's coming up next, taking some transition time to say, hey, okay, I'm headed home from work and I know I'm going to walk into everyone's hungry and I can't make dinner fast enough. And the house somehow got destroyed in 4 minutes because Shiloh dumped out every bucket of toys. And there was issues at school and Hartley's worn out from the day too. And there's going to be 20 things that need to get dressed at the same time. And it's going to be too much. I know I'm walking into that situation. How can I be patient and kind and ready to be life-giving with my words? And I know for me, I've got to take time to continue to be connected to the Lord and continue to invite God's strength. I need those breaks. I need those pauses. And a while back, I started trying to introduce like moment Sabbaths in my day. So not just like one day a week, but like Sabbathing in between meetings or daily activities. And that's really helped me when I can remember to do that, to transition. Because fortunately my commute home is 5 minutes, but the challenging part is I pick up the kids on the way home, and I don't really get like a transition time. And if I don't get that, I don't do well. So I need some minutes of prayer and reflection to transition and to be intentional and to prepare. And also to know that success looks like how I've treated people, not what I've accomplished. And I think that's helpful for me too. It's easy to feel the weight of all the things I need to do and not prioritize the way I treat people always in every situation. So, yeah, I think those are some good ways that I'm thinking through the sermon and the content and what I need to be intentional with this week in order to really live this out.
Yeah, and Ryan, you talked about how it's easy to be patient, give life-giving words, you get lots of rest, and and you're well rested. I'm sure as a parent you get that all the time, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have anything to just yeah.
We're all super rested.
Yeah.
These days, even if I get like 8 hours of sleep uninterrupted, I'm still like, I could just sleep forever. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and that's why I think it requires a lot of intentionality and requires a perspective shift, because I think we all have lows in our days where we're super tired or burnt out or emotionally drained, where, if you catch us in that wrong moment, it's really easy to be negative and to be argumentative and to be, and to say something that's maybe not so nice. And so it's really hard. Like, it's really hard to, have that mentality of how am I saying words that are life-giving all the time. I think, it's really hard to the point where, like all of us here, I think we all struggle with it in a lot of ways. I definitely do. So, it's something that none of us are going to be perfect at, but it really just takes a really intentional mindset. Like, I think one way that this isn't an exact example that relates to this conversation, but like I have vowed, like there are certain things that I have promised to Sarah that I'm always going to do no matter what. So even if we have a big argument or something like that, that I'm always going to be willing to help her in certain ways. And so like, no matter how angry I am, like I've made this promise and I'm never going to break the promise that I've made. So that in that mindset, like I'm committed to doing a positive action, no matter how I'm actually feeling. I think it takes that type of like mental commitment, that type of, almost like for me, like holding to my promise or holding to what I promised her that, I'd do. So I don't know. Anyways, and it's and there, I still make lots of mistakes, and I've definitely said a lot of things to Sarah out of frustration in our 3 years of marriage. And it's not easy, but I think it really is your mindset. It's really hard. It's not easy. So anyways, so it's challenging stuff.
yeah, sounds good. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And so, I think our hope coming out of this overflow is for us to really encourage all of you watching to really reflect on how you use your words and what you say, knowing that our words are an overflow of our heart, knowing that God has blessed us with language to be able to be a blessing to others, not a burden. At times, like the story with Leon, we need to share some hard phrases or some truthful phrases, but it's got to be done out of love and out of care for people and a desire for them to grow to be more like Christ, and done in a way that it can be received well. Part of that burden is on us, that it's not just what we say, but how we communicate it, and that's important too. And so think on your words this week. Think on what you're saying and what God is calling us to do with our language, and how we can represent Christ well, and how we live and how we love. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us on Overflow today. I hope it's been a blessing, and we look forward to seeing you next week.